What if I told you that in the next 72 hours, parts of America will face conditions not seen in a decade? Wind chills plunging to 65 degrees below zero, ice accumulations so severe that entire power grids could collapse, and snow totals reaching 12 inches in places that rarely see a dusting. Right now, as you watch this, three massive weather systems are converging over North America, and what they are about to create is something meteorologists are calling a once-in-a-generation event. This is not hype. This is not clickbait. This is a dangerous winter storm that will impact over 50 million Americans from Texas to the Atlantic coast. And here is what almost nobody is telling you. The most critical information, the part that could literally save your life or your property, comes at the 5-minute mark of this video. So stay with me, because what I am about to share could make the difference between being prepared and being stranded without power for days. Let me paint you a picture of what is happening right now at this very moment, thousands of feet above your head. A powerful Arctic air mass, born in the frozen expanses of northern Canada, is racing southward at speeds that have stunned weather experts. This isn't your typical cold front. This is what scientists call a polar vortex displacement event. And it's bringing with it temperatures so cold that exposed skin can freeze in under 5 minutes. But hear us where it gets truly concerning. While this Arctic blast crashes south like a frozen tsunami, something equally powerful is happening from the opposite direction. Gulf moisture, warm and laden with precipitation, is surging northward at levels 30% higher than normal for this time of year. Think about that for a moment, 30% higher than normal. That's an enormous amount of atmospheric moisture. Now, when these two titan forces collide, and they will collide in approximately 48 hours, the result will be catastrophic. We are talking about a clash of air masses so violently opposed in temperature that it will create what meteorologists call a stationary front. And that word, stationary, is the key to understanding why this storm is so dangerous. Most winter storms sweep through in 12 to 24 hours. They dump their snow, they move on, and life returns to normal within a day or two. But this system, this monster, is going to park itself over the southern United States and sit there for 2 days, maybe 3, continuously producing snow and ice across a region stretching from New Mexico to South Carolina. Let me give you some numbers that should wake you up. Oklahoma City could see up to 12 inches of snow. Nashville, 10 inches. Little Rock, Arkansas, 11 inches. These are cities where half an inch of snow shuts everything down. We are talking about snowfall totals 20 times that amount. But snow, as problematic as it is, isn't even the worst part of this storm. The ice is what terrifies me, and it should terrify you too. Dallas-Fort Worth is forecast to receive over 1 inch of ice accumulation. 1 full inch. Do you know what 1 inch of ice does to power lines? It snaps them like toothpicks. Do you know what it does to tree branches? Turns them into missiles that can crash through roofs and windows. 1/4 inch of ice is considered a major ice storm. We're talking about accumulations 4 times that severe. Shreveport, Louisiana could see similar amounts. Memphis, Tennessee is in the danger zone. Even parts of Georgia and the Carolinas are looking at significant ice accumulations. And remember, these are areas where most homes don T have backup generators, where most people don T stock emergency supplies, where a 3-day power outage and below freezing temperatures is not just inconvenient, it's life-threatening. But I promised you critical information at the 5-minute mark, and here it is. Pay very close attention to this next part, because this is what the mainstream weather reports are glossing over. This storm has 3 distinct phases, and understanding them could save your life. Phase 1 begins Friday afternoon. That's when the first precipitation starts falling across Oklahoma, Kansas, and northern Texas. During this phase, you still have time. You can still get to the store. You can still prepare. Roads will be passable, though deteriorating quickly. Phase 2 hits Friday night into Saturday morning. This is when the storm explodes in intensity. This is when the European weather model, which has been the most accurate predictor of major winter events over the past 5 years, shows heavy freezing rain falling continuously for 12 to 18 hours straight. During Phase 2, if you're not already home, you need to get home immediately. If you are on the road, find shelter. Any shelter. A hotel, a friend's house, even a 24-hour restaurant. Do not attempt to drive through freezing rain. Phase 3 is Saturday afternoon through Monday. This is the prolonged impact period. This is when power outages cascade across multiple states. when emergency services become overwhelmed, when hospitals fill up with people suffering from hypothermia, carbon monoxide poisoning from improper generator use, and injuries from falls on ice. This is when being prepared separates those who make it through comfortably from those who suffer. Now, let me tell you something that might surprise you. I've been studying weather patterns for over 2 decades, and I've noticed something remarkable. The most devastating storms, the ones that catch people completely off guard, always happen when we get comfortable, when we start to think that extreme weather is something that happens to other people, in other places. That when nature reminds us who really in charge. And you know what? There is wisdom in that reminder. The Bible tells us in Proverbs chapter 27, verse 12, a prudent person foresees danger and takes precautions. The simpleton goes blindly on and suffers the consequences. That not fear-mongering. That wisdom. That been true for thousands of years. So let's talk about what prudent preparation looks like. Because in just a moment, I'm going to reveal the single most important thing you need to do before Friday afternoon. And trust me, it's not what most people think. First, let us understand the scope of this system. The high-pressure system driving this Arctic air is massive. We're talking about 1,054 millibars. For context, a typical strong high-pressure system might be 1,030 millibars. This is extraordinarily intense. It's like a dam of cold air that is going to squeeze southward with tremendous force. Meanwhile, the atmospheric setup is unlike anything we've seen in recent memory. Most winter storms in the south are caused by a low-pressure system forming in the Gulf and tracking northeast. But this is different. We don't have a classic low-pressure system at all. Instead, we have this intense high pressure creating what is essentially a freezing conveyor belt of Arctic air meeting head-on with Gulf moisture that has nowhere to go. The result is a winter storm that will be slower moving and longer lasting than almost any system we have seen in the past 10 years. Some computer models are suggesting that certain areas could see continuous precipitation for 48 hours straight. 48 hours. Think about that. 2 full days of snow and ice falling from the sky without stopping. Now, I mentioned earlier that there's one critical thing you need to do before Friday afternoon. Here it is. Fill every container you have with water. Fill your bathtubs. Fill pitchers, pots, buckets, anything that can hold water. Fill them all. Why? Because when the power goes out, and in many areas it will go out, your water pump stops working. Even if you have city water, the treatment plants may lose power. And even if the treatment plants stay online, broken water mains from the extreme cold could contaminate the system. Having water stored is more important than having food. You can survive weeks without food. You can only survive 3 days without water. And here's something else most people don't think about. When it's 15 degrees outside and you have no heat, staying hydrated becomes even more critical. Your body works harder to stay warm, which means you're reusing more water. Dehydration in cold weather is just as dangerous as dehydration in hot weather. It just happens more subtly. But let's step back for a moment and look at the bigger picture, because there's something almost biblical about this weather pattern. 3 different forces, Arctic air from the north, Gulf moisture from the south, and jet stream winds from the west, all converging at exactly the right time and place to create this perfect storm. It's a reminder that we live in a created world with systems and patterns that are far beyond our control. And that should give us perspective. Not fear, but perspective. The same God who controls the wind and the waves, as we read in the Gospels, is the same God who is with us through every storm, whether literal or metaphorical. Our job isn't to panic. Our job is to prepare wisely and trust faithfully. So let's continue with the timeline, because knowing what's coming and when is half the battle. Wednesday, the curtain rises on this 3-act drama. A small Alberta clipper that is a fast-moving low-pressure system from Canada will bring 1 to 2 inches of snow to Chicago, Milwaukee, and Detroit. This is just the opening act, nothing major. Most people in those cities can handle that amount of snow without blinking, but it's setting the stage for what comes next. Thursday is deceptively quiet, and that's dangerous, because Thursday is when most people will decide whether or not to prepare. They'll look outside, see clear skies, maybe some sunshine, and think, everyone's overreacting. This storm is being hyped up. Fall into that trap. Thursday's quiet weather is like the calm before a hurricane. It's an illusion. Meanwhile, that massive high-pressure system is dropping out of Canada, pulling Arctic air behind it like an enormous frozen blanket. By Thursday night, temperatures in Minneapolis will be dropping toward 20 below zero. Wind chills will hit 60 below. That's cold enough to cause frostbite in less than 5 minutes. And that cold is heading south, fast. Friday morning, things start happening quickly. The Arctic front pushes into Kansas and Oklahoma. Temperatures that were in the 40s Thursday afternoon will be in the 20s by Friday morning. By Friday afternoon, they'll be in the teens. And then the moisture arrives, here where it gets really interesting. And this is information you want to hear on most weather broadcasts. The European weather model, which has proven to be the most reliable for these complex winter setups, is showing something alarming. It's showing the freezing rain beginning around 4 to 5 p.m. Friday afternoon in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. Not Friday night. Friday afternoon, that means rush hour. That means millions of people trying to get home from work on roads that are rapidly becoming ice rinks. That means accidents. Lots of them. That means highways turning into parking lots. That means people trapped in their cars for hours in below freezing temperatures. If you live in the Dallas area or Fort Worth or anywhere in northern Texas, you need to be home by 3 p.m. Friday. Not 4, not 5, 3 p.m. Tell your boss you're leaving early. Take a half day. Do whatever you need to do because by 5 p.m. it may already be too late to travel safely. The same applies to Oklahoma City, Tulsa, Little Rock, Shreveport, and Memphis. By Friday evening, travel will be extremely dangerous. By Friday night, it will be nearly impossible. And then comes Saturday. This is when the storm reaches its peak intensity. This is when we could see freezing rain rates of 1/10 of an inch per hour across a broad area from East Texas through Arkansas and into Tennessee. 1/10 of an inch per hour might not sound like much, but when it continues for 10, 12, 15 hours, you end up with over an inch of ice coating everything. Power lines can handle that. The weight of the ice causes them to sag. Then the wind, which will be gusting to 25 to 35 miles per hour, causes those sagging lines to sway. They touch each other, they spark, transformers blow, and then the lights go out. And once they go out, they might stay out for a while. Power companies will be dealing with outages across multiple states simultaneously. They can fix everything at once. Repair crews will be working around the clock, but they can only do so much. Some areas could be without power for 3 days, maybe longer. That's why preparation is so critical. And we are not just talking about physical preparation here. We're talking about mental preparation too. Most Americans have never experienced a prolonged winter power outage. We're not psychologically ready for what it feels like to sit in a dark, cold house for hours on end. The boredom, the discomfort, the worry, it's harder than you think. This is where faith becomes practical. This is where having a strong spiritual foundation makes a real difference. Because when you're sitting in the dark, wrapped in blankets, wondering when the power will come back on, you need something to anchor yourself to. You need something bigger than your circumstances. I'm reminded of Psalm 46 verse 1. God is our refuge and strength, an ever-present help in trouble. That's not just a nice verse to put on a coffee mug. That is truth that sustains people through actual hardship. But let's continue with the forecast because knowledge is power, even when the electricity isn't flowing. Sunday, the storm continues eastward. Now we are looking at significant impacts from Virginia through the Carolinas. The National Weather Service is already posting probability forecasts showing an 80% chance of at least 6 inches of snow across much of Virginia. 80%. That's about as close to a certainty as meteorology gets. But again, it's not just the snow, it is the ice. The Carolinas are looking at what's called a cold air damming event. That's when Arctic air gets trapped on the eastern side of the Appalachian Mountains and just sits there. Warm air tries to move in aloft, but the cold air at the surface won't budge. The result? Freezing rain, lots of it. Atlanta could see ice. Raleigh could see ice. Charlotte could see ice. These are major metropolitan areas with millions of people who have zero experience dealing with significant ice storms. The potential for chaos is very real. Monday, the storm finally begins to move off the coast, but the impacts will linger. Roads will still be icy, power will still be out in many areas, and temperatures will remain below freezing, which means nothing melts. This is the recovery phase, and it's often the most dangerous. This is when people get hurt trying to clean up. trying to chip ice off their driveways, trying to clear snow from their roofs. This is when heart attacks spike because people who aren't used to physical labor try to shovel heavy, wet snow. So if we retallying up the total impact here, we're looking at a 5-day event from Friday through Tuesday. 5 days of winter weather impacts across a huge section of the country. 5 days when travel will be difficult or impossible. 5 days when power could be out. 5 days when grocery stores might be closed or running low on supplies. Now, some of you might be thinking, isn't this all just worst-case scenario thinking? Wouldn't it probably be less severe than this? Maybe. Weather forecasting isn't perfect. Models can be wrong. Storms can shift. They can weaken. They can fall apart entirely. But here's what I know. The European model has been remarkably consistent with this forecast for the past 4 days. When a model shows the same general setup run after run, day after day, that SA sign it S onto something. The American GFS model is now starting to come into agreement with the European model. When multiple independent weather models start agreeing, that increases confidence significantly. And the physics makes sense. We have a documented Arctic air mass. We can see it on satellite. We have documented Gulf moisture. We can measure it. When they meet, precipitation will fall. And given the temperature profile, that precipitation will be frozen. The only real questions are exactly where and exactly how much. Will Oklahoma City see 8 inches of snow or 12? Will Dallas see 0.75 inches of ice or 1.2 inches? Those details matter, of course, but the overall picture is clear. A major winter storm is coming, so let's talk about what you should be doing right now. Not tomorrow, not Thursday, right now. Number 1, charge everything. Your phone, your tablet, your laptop, your rechargeable flashlights, your battery banks, everything. And I mean everything. Find that old phone in the drawer that you haven't used in 2 years. Charge it. It might become your only way to communicate if your primary phone dies. Number 2, get cash. ATMs don't work when the power is out. Credit card readers don't work when the power is out. Cash works. Get enough to last you a week. $300 to $500. Keep it in small bills. Number 3, fill your gas tank all the way. Don't wait until it is at a quarter tank. Fill it completely. If the power goes out, gas stations can pump gas. Your car becomes an emergency heating source, but only if it has fuel. Number 4, check on your neighbors, especially elderly neighbors. People living alone, people with medical conditions. Make sure they know what's coming. Make sure they have supplies. Offer to help them prepare. This is what community looks like. This is what loving your neighbor as Jesus commanded looks like in practical terms. Number 5, get your medications. If you take prescription medications, make sure you have at least a week's supply. Call your pharmacy now. Tell them you need an early refill because of the storm. Most insurance companies will approve early refills in emergency situations. Number 6, and this is critical, make a plan for heat. If your power goes out, how will you stay warm? Do you have a fireplace? Do you have firewood? Do you have a generator? Do you know how to use it safely? Carbon monoxide poisoning kills more people during winter storms than the cold itself. Never run a generator indoors. Never run a charcoal grill indoors. Never use your oven to heat your home. If you don't have any of these options, your plan needs to be to go somewhere else. A friend's house. A family member's house. A warming shelter. The County Emergency Management Office can tell you where warming shelters will be located, but you need to know that information before the storm hits. Number 7, stock up on food, but be smart about it. You don't need fresh vegetables that will spoil if the power goes out. You need non-perishable items, canned goods, peanut butter, crackers, granola bars, things that don't require cooking, and don't forget about your pets. They need food too. Number 8, and I can stress this enough, fill those water containers, every single one you can find. Now let me address something that might be on some of your minds. Some of you are probably thinking, this all sounds expensive. I can afford to buy a generator and stock up on supplies and fill my gas tank and everything else. I understand. These are challenging economic times for a lot of people. But here's the thing. Preparation doesn't have to be expensive. Filling water containers is free. Charging your devices is essentially free. Checking on your neighbors is free. Making a plan is free. For the things that do cost money, prioritize. You probably don't need a $2,000 generator if you live in an area that rarely loses power. But you probably should spend $30 on flashlights and batteries. You probably should spend $50 filling your pantry with extra canned goods that you will eat eventually anyway. And remember, this isn't money wasted. This is insurance. This is investing in your family's safety and comfort. And unlike a lot of insurance, you can actually use these supplies whether the storm is as bad as predicted or not. Plus, and this is important, once you re-prepared for this storm, you re-prepared for the next one too. Emergency supplies don't expire overnight. That food will keep for months or years. Those batteries will be there next time you need them. That generator will be ready for the next power outage. You're not just preparing for one storm. You're rebuilding resilience for whatever comes next. And something will come next. That's guaranteed. Whether it's another winter storm, a summer hurricane, a tornado outbreak, or something else entirely, there will be another emergency. The question is whether you'll be ready for it. Now, as we get closer to the end here, I want to circle back to something I mentioned earlier. The idea that there is something almost providential about the timing and setup of this storm. 3 different atmospheric forces converging at exactly the right time in exactly the right place to create this extraordinary event. The odds of that happening randomly are astronomical. And yet, here we are. Some people would call that coincidence. Some would call it bad luck. But I see the hand of providence, not in a punishing way, but in a humbling way. A reminder that we are not as in control as we think we are. A reminder that nature is powerful. A reminder that we need to respect the world we live in, and we need to respect each other. Because when the storm hits, when the power goes out, when the roads are impassable, all we have is each other, our neighbors, our community, our faith. That's when you find out what people are really made of. That's when heroes emerge. The person who shares their generator with the family next door, the person who checks on everyone on their street, the person who opens their home to someone who needs shelter. These storms, as difficult as they are, bring out the best in people. They remind us of what really matters. Not the things we own or the positions we hold, but the connections we have and the character we display. So yes, prepare practically, stock up on supplies, make your plans, do everything I've outlined, but also prepare spiritually, prepare mentally, prepare to be the person your community needs you to be. And one more thing, after this storm passes, and it will pass, take a moment to reflect. Think about what you learned. Think about what worked and what didn't. Write it down. Because the lessons you learn from this storm will serve you for the rest of your life. There's a reason I'm spending time on this forecast. There's a reason I'm giving you all this detail. Because I truly believe that knowledge shared is knowledge multiplied. When you know what's coming, you can prepare. When you prepare, you can help others. When you help others, you strengthen your entire community. And strong communities survive storms. Weak communities fall apart. So which kind of community do you want to live in? The choice is partly up to you. In closing, let me give you the bottom line forecast one more time, because this is the information you need to lock in your mind. Friday afternoon through Monday, a major winter storm will impact areas from Texas to the Atlantic coast. Snowfall totals could reach 12 inches in Oklahoma, Arkansas, and Tennessee. Ice accumulations could exceed 1 inch from Dallas through Memphis. Wind chills could drop to 65 below zero in the northern plains. Power outages lasting multiple days are likely across a wide area. Travel will be extremely dangerous or impossible. Prepare now, not later, now. And remember, you've been warned. You've been given time. You've been given information. What you do with that information is up to you. But I'll leave you with this final thought. In Matthew chapter 7, Jesus told the parable of the wise builder and the foolish builder. The wise builder built his house on rock. The foolish builder built on sand. When the storm came, and the storm always comes, the house on the rock stood firm. The house on the sand collapsed. We can stop the storms of life from coming, but we can choose how we build. We can choose how we prepare. We can choose to be wise or foolish. This week, be wise. Prepare your house. Prepare your family. Prepare your heart. And if you found this information helpful, if it made you think, if it helped you prepare, then do me a favor. Share it, send it to your friends and family who live in the affected areas. Post it on social media, because the more people who are prepared, the better we'll all be. And stay tuned, because as this storm develops, as we get new information from the weather models, as the timeline becomes clearer, I'll be bringing you updates. This is a rapidly evolving situation, and you need to stay informed. The most critical updates, the information that could change everything about how you prepare, will be coming in the next 48 hours. So make sure you re-following along, make sure you're rechecking back, because in a situation like this, 24 hours can make all the difference. Stay safe out there, stay warm, stay prepared, and remember,